Alright guys, this is the second Pandas essential tutorial. Okay, so this is just a follow-up from the previous one. Now in this case I'm going to show you a couple of other commands that you need to keep in mind as you start exploring your data. Okay, so I'm going to still use the same data file from the previous tutorial. Is the DMC 2006 underscore train. Just a friendly reminder about this data set. It's about auctions online. So then people go to this site, they list the item that they want to sell, and then we know when the listing starts, when the listing ends, and we have a bunch of different attributes that later on we will get more familiar with those. And then again, at the end of the day, what we are interested in is whether or not the selling price is higher than the average price for that item category. Okay, so so let's get into it. So here, as I show you on the previous tutorial, so if you want to analyze your data with Pandas, so then first you need to import Pandas like we have here, and then we are reading the data, and then again this particular data file is a CSV file, and then anytime that you want to read data out of a CSV file with Pandas, you use the read underscore CSV command. And then the very first thing that I do after I read the data into a data frame, I just print the head. Okay, so let's run this again. One thing that I want to highlight here is you see three dots, right? So then, and I also show in the previous tutorial that this particular data frame has 26 columns. Okay, so if we scroll from the left to the right, we will see that there are no 26 columns. Not all the 26 columns are being displayed. Okay, so if we want to get rid of these three dots and we want to see all of the columns, what we need to do is just add the PD options displays command equals to none. Okay, so then if we do that, we will display all of the columns. So then now we can see that the three dots went away. Okay, all right, what I want to show you in this tutorial is something that is called summary statistics. Okay, and what a summary statistic is basically looking into five numbers associated to a set of numbers. Okay, and what are those five numbers? Minimum, first quartile, median, third quartile, and the maximum. Why those five numbers are important? Well, in statistics, those five numbers are important because it gives you a very good idea about the distribution of the numbers. Why that is important? Well, that can give you ideas in terms of potential distributions that you may want to consider for that particular variable. It may also helps you to identify potential outliers on that particular column and a few other things. Okay, so now in this tutorial what I'm going to show you is how you can quickly create summary statistics using a Pandas data frame. Okay, so what you could do if you want to create summary statistic of a Pandas data frame is the following. So you start by typing the name of the data frame, which in this case is df, and then that describe. Okay, so let me add a comment here. Reporting summary statistics. Okay, so if I run this command here, so then this is what it gets printed. Okay, so for each column, we see the following information. So let's start with this one right here. So action ID. So count represents how many data values we see there, or how many values are actually stored there. Mean is just the average of all of those values. STD is the standard deviation, and the standard deviation is the measure of variability. So in some sense, it tells us how much volatility we have in those numbers. Mean refers to the minimum value, 25% refers to the first quartile, 50% refers to the median, 75% refers to the third quartile, and the max refers to the maximum. Okay. Now, one thing that I want to highlight here is if we look at this row right here, you will notice that on this particular column, so we have less values compared to the others. So in all of the other columns, we have 7,998, and on this one, we have 7,880. Okay, so then that means that we have missing values in that particular column. And that's something very common, especially when you're working with real life data. If you hear me say real life data, so then that refers data that it was generated on some sort of like a business process. Okay, so there are some missing values here. The next thing that you may be wondering is, okay, Oscar, you told me that there are 26 columns here, but then I only see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 columns. So we see summary statistics associated to only 10 columns. What happened is that by default, when you use the .describe command in a Pandas data frame, it only reports on it only reports the summary statistic of numeric data. So all of the columns that have numbers stored in it, so it will report those. But what if I want to see the summary statistics of all of the columns, right? Including the ones that has label information stored in it, like this one right here, and this one right here, and this one right here, and there are others. Okay, so if that is the case, so reporting summary statistics of all of the columns. So if that is the case, so what you need to do is you still use the describe command, but then now you need to include all argument. Okay, so in this case, now if we run these, now what you can see is that it is displaying now 26 columns. Now for the ones that they have label information stored in it, so for example this one, right, item, leaf, category, obviously we have label information in it, right? It's not going to compute the average of labels because that is impossible. It's not going to compute the standard deviation of labels. Okay, and so then in those cases, what it displays is how many values are stored there, or in this case, how many labels you have there, how many unique labels you have there, what is the most frequent label, okay, and what is the frequency associated to that label. So then that's the information that you see with that describe on, in some sense, label data. Okay, how many labels, how many unique labels, what is the most frequent label, and what is the frequency associated to that label. Okay, and that's the information that you will see for all of the columns that have label information stored in them. Okay, yeah, so then include equals all, so that basically that will report the summary statistics of all of the columns in the data frame. Okay, so describe is another important command that you need to keep in mind when you start analyzing your data with Pandas. All right, that's all I have for this video. See you on the next one.